Welcome back to the final match of the first round of our multiplayer tournament in Rise of the Samurai. Yukitsu's changed up his army yet again with 2 mounted samurai as opposed to his last 2 matches. He still has his faithful warrior monks for their warcry and devastating charge. In fact, he's gone with 3 of them. And he has a levy out the front and some sword attendants for a little bit of extra melee chop. Quite a dynamic and aggressive loadout. It really indicates he wants to skirmish hard and win the fight in the early stages. Now, GenericServices over here, once again, with his double Naginata warrior monks, his 3 sword attendants, he's gone back to his sword attendant loadout, and some Naginata levy, and 2 bow attendants. So he's lighter on the bows than before, and heavier on the melee. Something which, based on the last 2 games, is a good choice, in my opinion. His skirmishing game is good, but it's not as strong as Yukitsu's, and in the skirmish game, there's a lot of skill involved. Now, at the moment, we can see that Yukitsu is making a beeline straight for the sword dojo, which, as I mentioned earlier, can be absolutely critical to get the extra melee attack and charge. There's a very aggressive play early on by GenericServices with his mounted samurai hero, but unfortunately, he leaves his retreat a little late, and he loses several samurai heroes from the inevitable counterattack. But it is a magnificent catch, because we have, if I recall correctly, a counterattack from these bow attendants who just whittle down, but nothing particularly devastating. Nevertheless, it's a bit of a no-score draw in that one. Except in this case, Yukitsu is taking the sword dojo, and so his army's gaining the melee punch that it currently, while it has in reasonable amounts, it lacks the infantry advantage that GenericServices has. At this point in time, if I was GenericServices, I'd be pushing hard and forcing him to choose between taking the sword dojo or fighting me with his full force, because Yukitsu has very, very strong skirmishing capabilities. 2 mounted samurai is a phenomenal amount of firepower, as you can see by their statistics. 60 reload, 60 accuracy, 6 armor. It's just you're not going to be able to out-skirmish those guys. They can pick when they want to fight, how they want to fight, and just win fights. So it's really important. Now, with the sword dojo taken, Yukitsu has decided that it's time to push his advantage before GenericServices has a chance. Now, GenericServices is backed up in the trees here, and this is a very good move. It's the best possible move he can have, because he's baited the enemy into attacking him with the mounted samurai, with the hope of trying to kill some mounted samurai hero, and instead it's going to turn out to be very expensive indeed. Look at this. Look at this. That is huge. There is at least 500 koku worth of men dead on that field from that volley. It was a fantastic ambush. And now, really what he needs is to follow up with a counterattack. Yukitsu is committing all of his forces, and that is absolutely important, because he currently does have the melee advantage. But one thing he also has is he has a ranged advantage. He can pick the soft targets. This flank here, this Naginata warrior monk, is just absolutely soaking enormous amounts of damage from this mounted samurai, and it's getting whittled down. It really needs to be getting engaged in combat, so that at the very least there's a good chance the arrows will hit his own men. With these 2 warrior monks coming in on the side here, and his general all the way out on the left flank, it's a poor deployment position for GenericServices. His general really needs to be centered up in the trees here, where he's able to exert his influence over the whole number of troops. And this attack, like these Naginata warrior monks, alright, they're goners. They're always going to be goners. His mounted samurai hero is getting mulched now. He's done the right thing, and he's pulling him out. And we've seen a rally. Now, this is great. This is great. But look at all the troops. The rally has missed because his general is all the way out on the left flank. And so we see the opposite from Yukitsu. We see great play from the general here. We've got an Inspire on the sword attendants who are grinding through the center line. They're banzai'd up so they do extra damage and have unbreakable morale. And they're rallied by the general as well as being in the general radius. The general drops into stand and fight, and we have a great combination for just punching straight through the middle. If the general had been in the center here and the rally had hit these sword attendants, they might have stayed in the fight long enough to take some more guys out. But as it is, with the right flank collapsing, the center goes, and this right-hand side here has also gone. We're seeing lots of war cries at opportune times. He waited for wavering before he hit the war cry. And it's just these little things, these tiny things decide battles. It looks absolutely like you get taken out without any chance of reprieve, but that's really not the case. That's really not the case. He had several opportunities with which to turn it around to take the game back. And, I mean, just look here, we got his men are exhausted, basically. And if he could have just held a little bit longer, because Yukitsu was coming to him, was attacking him up the hill, across the trees, and fighting in the forest, his men are significantly more tired than Generic Services. And so if he held the line a little longer, and these little things hold the line, stand and fight, inspire, rally, banzai, all these little things, they add up to just holding the line that little bit longer, because the chain routes are just so devastating. One unit goes, and then there's the penalty for retreating friends, and so the next unit goes, and then there's more retreating friends, so the next unit goes, and your whole line collapses. But if he doesn't have that first one crumble in the first place, then they hold that little bit longer. The enemy gets tired, they're worn out, their combat statistics, even with the buildings, are massively reduced, their morale is reduced, and suddenly you're winning the fight against them. It can make a huge difference just holding out that little bit longer. Anyway, I still rate him. I think Yukitsu did a fantastic fight, and personally, I'm terrified against running up against him, and I think anyone who can take him on is doing bloody well. But then again, this is simply the first match of our tournament. How many more fantastic players are out there that we haven't seen yet? I personally am really excited and look forward to seeing it, and I hope you are too. Have a great one, everyone. This is Shalkar signing off.